Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 5 Essential Strategies for Selecting and Implementing a Cloud-Based POS, presented by PAR and FastCasual.com. I'm Shara Kanzler, editor of Fast Casual, and I'll introduce the rest of our speakers in just a moment, but first I'd like to remind everyone to stick around for the entire presentation, because at the end, you'll be able to submit a question and possibly have it answered live by our panelists. I'll also tell you how to connect with them just in case we don't get to your question. We've all heard the saying, I wish I knew then what I know now, and there's a reason it's so popular. It's usually because the right questions weren't asked in the beginning. Implementing crucial technology such as cloud-based POS systems doesn't have to be hard if you know what to look for. Luckily, we have 2 experts to teach you all that you need to know about switching to a cloud-based POS solution. Our speakers today are Darren Heisey, Pre-Sales Engineer at PAR, and also Tim Carter, the Chief Administrative Officer of Salsarita's Fresh Mexican Grill. And now that intros are out of the way, I'm going to hand it right over to Darren to get us started.
Thanks, Shara. Well, first off, let's say thank you to everyone for joining the call today. I want to start off by introducing myself. I am rather new to the PAR family, but I'm not new to the topic of choosing a cloud-based POS system, as I have 30 years plus experience in the restaurant space with 15 leading IT departments for the restaurant space. I've had the pleasure of choosing cloud-based systems in my past, as well as choosing and deploying cloud-based POS system twice. So what I'd like to do today, guys, is we're going to start out. I'm going to go through and give you the what and why of the solution of what is cloud-based POS system and why there's a compelling reason to look into selecting a cloud-based POS system. And then I'm going to hand it over to Tim later in the conversation to have him take us through his journey on selecting and deploying the solution. That being said, I am not in sales, but contractually obligated to show the slide and tell you a little bit about PAR. PAR is a 35-year-old company that remains relevant in the hardware software space because they've pursued improving the efficiencies for hospitality industry throughout the software and hardware with the software and hardware solutions. Showing examples here of their Brink POS system, cloud-based POS system. Our EverServe solution is a paperless-based temperature checking solution, and our tablet solutions. So very versed in the space. The infamous NASCAR slide. What we see here is a series of Brink deployments on the POS system off to the left, lots of logos. And then if you look over to the right, we've got our revenues, our terminal deployed, how many countries we're in, how many employees. As a former customer, I look at this and say I feel good with this group, that it is not 2 guys in a garage that are going to be supporting my POS system. So now that we've got the sales slides out of the way, we can get into talking about what is cloud POS system, or what is cloud POS. Cloud, I'm pretty convinced, is a marketing term. Hosted was not sexy enough for the marketing industry, so they came up with a term called cloud. And what really cloud is basically the server is sitting in a data center. And the need for the back office server on site is no longer needed using a cloud system. It's great for the multi-unit operators. Data is readily available, and you're always on the latest and greatest version of software. So what makes cloud different? Well, software as a service, the SaaS model. The 2 greatest expenses outside, well, the one greatest expense outside of hardware on any POS system is the software licensing. And with the SaaS model, you're paying as you go for the service. So you don't have this high expense in your legacy POS in the POS world that you're used to from the legacy systems. Ease of management. Cloud-based systems are built from the top down. Legacy POS systems were built from the restaurant level up, meaning that you had to have a lot of bolt-on types of tools to manage them remotely. Based off the way a cloud system is built and deployed, you are able to manage it remotely from a much higher vantage point. So it makes it a little bit easier to manage. The automatic features updates, you're always going to be on the latest and greatest version of the software, which is not always the case in the old legacy world of POS systems. You have a server in the restaurant. You have to keep it updated. It's usually a couple of versions behind. You have other software running on the server. It's the number one most important system in your restaurant, and you're running all of these different programs on it. So going with a SaaS model and hosting it is really a compelling reason to keep yourself safer. The total cost of ownership, the licensing fees up front, as discussed before, you don't have that huge license fee up front that you have in the old world POS system. CFOs love it because it's easily budgeted. It's easy to budget and predict what you're going to be spending monthly because it's negotiated up front. The hardware adaptability, you're not married to any one particular hardware in a cloud system. You're able to choose your hardware as long as it has the required OS to do so. Maintenance costs, it kind of falls in line with this with the whole concept of no expensive server in the restaurant that usually is expensive to maintain. And because of the deployments, because of the cloud infrastructure, it is a much simpler and quicker deployment for new stores because you're pushing down from one central location locally. And unlike other POS systems, the cloud-based POS system was designed to be enterprise by nature, so it's just as easy to manage one location as is 1,000 locations. The menu management, one central location that you're pushing down to. Reporting is enterprise by nature. Simple deployment, the remote installation and training is done remotely as well. When I was shopping cloud-based systems, this was probably the most important part of, or the most compelling reason for me to make a switch. And it was really that the world that we live in 10 years ago was very different than the one that we live in today. There was no online ordering, no delivery services required. Nobody knew what loyalty was. And historically, POS companies would just bolt on these clunky systems that say, okay, well, we met your requirement. We've got a time clock in here. We've got this in here working for you. The best part of working with a cloud-based system is what is called cloud-to-cloud communication. You work with an API that allows all of these circles of opportunity, inventory, gift cards, kitchen video, your accounting system, catering, paging, loyalty, you name it. A cloud-based system will work very nicely with play nicely with this type of system, whereas the legacy world would be you'd be talking to a vendor and you get what you would call a best of breed vendor that would come into the demo to your executive team and say, hey, we'll get you to a good place with our system, and you fall in love with the solution. You say, okay, well, I need it to integrate with my POS system, and they say, well, if you can make an introduction, I think we can work with them, and then it becomes a very costly event. So this was really a compelling reason for my selection in prior lives to choose going to a cloud-based system, because I really became in control. And what's great is we don't know what tomorrow brings, but we know that we've built a platform to handle future growth and scalability of what the world looks like ahead of us. And so hopefully this slide here will demystify what the cloud POS system looks like. If you look to the right where you see your store, it looks very similar. There's only one thing missing, and that's really the back office server. You got your POS terminals. If you have KDS, it's still going to run over Ethernet. So inside of the store, it's still going to function the same way. You've got your switch, a firewall, and a router. The big difference is that data center out there, that's where all of the data is truly residing, and it becomes extremely mobile and accessible from the support center, your mobile device. If you are on the beach and want to check sales and manage your restaurants remotely, you have the ability to do so. So it's really kind of trying to demystify what a cloud solution looks like. This picture kind of depicts what that looks like. So I would like to hand it over, because I think that we're going to learn quite a bit when we talk to Tim and his journey, because he's pretty far down the road, and he's got a great story to share with you guys. So Tim.
Thanks, Darren. Thanks for setting us up there with some basic terminology and understanding of why we look to the cloud for more than just raindrops and lightning bolts. So getting into a little bit of our story, like Darren said at the beginning, I'm with Salsaritas Fresh Mexican Grill. There's some information here, details about our brand and our system. A few things that I'd like to point out about Salsaritas that were unique and informed our POS decision. We're a franchise organization primarily. We have some corporate operations, but we're primarily a franchise organization. So we're making a software and hardware decision, not just for us, but on behalf of our franchise owners who are independent business operators. And so that put a little bit of pressure on us to, deliver a good decision that was going to help our organization grow. We service a lot of different order channels within our restaurants. Catering, for example, is about 20% of our business and has a different menu structure, pricing model than our in-restaurant business, as well as third-party order aggregators such as Grubhub or the like. Phone-in orders in a fast casual format take on a different structure than an in-restaurant order. And so that put a lot of burdens on our POS system to be able to face each one of those orders in the way that order wants to come in. And the other thing is I'm kind of speaking from the middle of the action right now. We're about 90% implemented on hardware and the base POS system. In the approach we took, we wanted to make sure that we got the core POS system in place, get the basics working of clocking in and clocking out, making sure that the money makes it to the bank, making sure credit cards work, get everybody standardized on the same system, and then after that roll forward with online ordering and the loyalty platform and some other bells and whistles that come down the pike, which were sort of the real reason for wanting to do a lot of this, but wanted to make sure we got a good stable platform. Didn't want to try to bite all that off in one chunk, because as you'll see as we get into some more topics here, the things can get complicated. I'm going to try to bounce between 30,000-foot view and a little under the topsoil, because as with any technology, it takes kind of an understanding of what the big picture looks like as well as all the devils in the details. So I'm going to talk a little bit about both of those as we go on. So what were the drivers behind us switching to a cloud-based system? All the ones listed here for us, but the ones I'd really like to elaborate on is the idea of having the right data in the right hands at the right time. We have a lot of different users of data within our organization, from the CEO to the frontline employee who's clocking in late to work that morning or early to work that morning. And everybody interacts with this POS system in a different way and has a different need for it. The cloud-based solution allows a lot more flexibility because the data is residing in a central place that is not in the physical restaurant. Different people can access it in different ways at different times, and it allows us to have a little bit more of a personalized experience for that user. So, the CEO can see the rolled up reports that, give the top line picture that she wants to look at or he wants to look at, and the frontline employee can look at the daily, the hour-to-hour metrics about what their sales are and what their labor percentage is, at their workstation while they're on the job, as opposed to having to go to a printout report later or looking online later that day. So that was a big driver in wanting to have a POS system. We really did also like the fact that there was an integrated online ordering platform that would help ease the integration and conversion to getting into online ordering, which has been a goal of ours for a while now. So this is a very kind of MBA kind of slide, but it really does drive home a real critical idea about a POS selection. Is you need to identify all of those stakeholders early on and right up front. Whereas I'm much wiser now about POS selection and implementation, initially I wasn't. We looked around our organization and realized that we didn't have that expertise in-house. So we actually got a consulting firm, in our case Constrata, to help us run this process and provide some third-party expertise and, frankly, third-party objectivity to the process. And the first critical thing was to say, okay, who should have a say in this decision? Ultimately it's our decision as the franchisor, but whose input do we need? We formed a technology committee and got members from our corporate staff, managers from our restaurants, managers from franchisees of restaurants, franchisees themselves. We had a cashier in the room for these long meetings about what is critical to us in this POS decision. And having those different perspectives in the room, it wouldn't be a surprise to anybody on the call that franchisees and franchisors sometimes don't see the world the exact same way. So there were lots of good discussions, strenuous discussions about the POS system, but having those different viewpoints helps you prioritize, what is really important to us in this decision, and what is a nice to have, or what is a, we might need that in 5 years kind of issue, versus, hey, this is mission critical. If this POS vendor can't deliver on this, then they're out of the running. So that was really good. Now, I put on this slide, the customers. Customers are a major stakeholder in your POS decision. They're at least half the equation because they're the half that gives you the money. Now, I wasn't able to convince a customer to actually sit through all those meetings. That would have been nice. But we kept the mantra of these meetings was, think about the customer. How is this going to impact the customer? If we make a decision that is purely for the benefit of our employees or our managers or our executives, that can be okay as long as it doesn't negatively impact the customer. If there's a customer impact negatively or positively, that has to be weighed in heavily into that decision. So always keep your customer in mind when you're deciding technology, because they have to use it just as much as you do. So next step, I'm going to take the 10,000-foot jump. In this busy little slide is kind of getting at the notion that the POS system is sort of the brainstem of your organization. Everything touches on it at some point, or may touch on it, or has to touch on it at some point. And part of this exercise that we did was to, step to 10,000 feet and look at all the data within our organization. Where is it coming from? Where is it going? What's generating it? What's using it? Identify, and this is really just a subset of that greater picture, this sort of a summary picture of it, and it's real busy, but it gets to the point that there's a lot of different parts of your business that are relying on the POS system or touching on the POS system, and you need to understand what each of those connections is. Think about the connection points between those systems. Are they speaking the same language, or do you need a translator between them? That's the gateway that's up there. Your merchant services and your POS system may not be speaking the same language. You may need a translator between the two. That could be true for any one of those connections. And think about the flow of data. Is it one way or two way? And then really critically is looking at the timing of that data. We were talking earlier, the real-time data is a phrase that gets used a lot in this arena, and there's a lot of different flavors of real-time data. Real-time could mean updated every 3 seconds, updated every minute, updated every 5 minutes, or hey, if I get you a report by the end of the night, that's real-time, right? And if you work in the restaurant business, real-time means the customer's standing in front of me right now and I need an answer. So looking at how frequently data updates and is available can be an important driver of this decision, and knowing that if your inventory system can only accept an update every night, then is there value in having a 5-minute update on your inventory window? Maybe, maybe not. But making those kind of qualitative decisions on each one of those connections is important. Also looking at the users of that data, the access points those different users need. One of our goals was to reduce access points, try to get as much one-stop shopping for the user as possible, cut down on the number of usernames and passwords that somebody has to keep up with. And then storage points, thinking, where is my data accumulating? What is the security of that data? Looking at some of those issues. Once you develop a good understanding of where all this data is residing, that helps inform a lot of these other decisions that you need to think about. And we had to look at this and many others. These were some of the major ones. And looking at what were our current needs today and what we thought our 1, 3, and 5-year needs were going to be. Now, I don't try to predict what social media platform is going to be driving the show 5 years from now, but I do know what's driving it today and what's likely to be in the next 6 months. So if I need integration with that, I need to have that on the table right now. Thinking about hardware life cycle and integration partners in particular, that's a really key driver of this decision. I've learned that the word integration is a very tricky word. There's a big difference between I can integrate with that and I have already integrated with that. And the difference can be 6 months and a lot of money. So you want to understand what the integration that's either being proposed or has already been accomplished, what it does. That's really one of those devil in the details kind of things. So focus a lot on integration between your existing partners, and if down the road you want to, such as we knew we wanted to make a merchant services change and enhance our gift card functionality. What does that look like? Who's going to provide that? Get those people in the door early on. That's the nature of the time frame you're working with here. Is you've got to think 6 months down the road, because that may be how long it takes you to develop an integration if it doesn't already exist. The other point on this I really want to make is internal network requirements. That's what I'm getting at there is all the cloud technology in the world still has to come into your restaurant through a physical cable and get through the restaurant to a physical terminal. And some of the physical issues of firewalls, cabling, network, internet service provider reliability, internet service provider backup, those can be very critical undertakings that have to be done, way up front. You got to get in there, and I've certainly spent a lot of time in a lot of restaurants cleaning up a spaghetti pile of wiring, trying to figure out which ones were still live, and got shocked a few times. But it's physical problems inside the restaurant are the hardest to diagnose remotely. And when you go into a cloud system, that's what you're talking about, is remote diagnosis. So having a tight ship inside the four walls of your restaurant can become, a game changer for you when you start to deploy. Those struggles that we did have during deployment were almost always related to some sort of physical preparation at the restaurant, be it firewall, cabling, modems, internet service connections, 4G backup. Those sort of things were always the issue that stopped an otherwise well-thought-through plan. So don't get hung up in the glamour of cloud computing, because at the end of the day, it's still got to come through, the wall physically. So focus some time there, because every minute you invest in that is really going to reap rewards for you in fewer headaches down the road. Okay, so what were some general advice I would offer to somebody if they were standing in my shoes 6 months ago? To thine own self be true. I think knowing yourself, your organization is what I mean by yourself. Knowing your organization and its capabilities and its limitations and things that it does well and things that it doesn't do well will really help push you to make better decisions about the POS technology. It's not so much about what the POS system can do or the cloud system can do for you. It's really about knowing which items it can't do that are mission critical to you. If you really true with yourself and focus on what your organization can and can't do, you can look at those shortcomings in your organization and say, okay, does the POS provider that I'm looking at working with, can they fill some of that gap for me? Or is that something they really don't feel like it's part of their core business, which is fair, but I need to know that I got to fill that gap before I can do business with them. That you're really trying to look for complementing strengths, not replicating strengths. Be very frank and comfortable with your SLAs. If something is mission critical to you and you have to, if somebody picks up the phone, they expect a person on the phone within 30 seconds that can resolve it within 5 minutes, sit down and have a discussion with somebody about, realistic expectations, but also you need to be honest and frank about that up front. If a level 3, if a priority 3 problem, meaning 3 tiers down, if the SLA is that you'll get a call back within 24 hours and your users are expecting a call back that afternoon, you're going to have an instant disconnect right off the bat. And, being very clear with your own organization and with your provider about, what is a reasonable time frame to expect a support call to be resolved, to expect a maintenance call to be resolved. Getting those out front and being very open with that will help smooth things over. Also, understanding what that company's approach to project management and deployment and field support is another one of those, getting to know you kind of things that, your organization needs to be very comfortable with, and again, setting expectations. So you might be asking, how's it going for us? We're about 90% through the physical implementation. Some things that have been very beneficial to us things are fairly qualitative right now. The quantitative is going to follow, particularly as we get into online ordering and the loyalty program. I think that's where we're really going to see a lot of the quantitative hits. One thing I've been very pleased with is that the rollout, we've deployed 52 restaurants in 12 weeks. That includes Christmas, so that's about 3 times faster than our last time we deployed a POS system. The period of deployment is going to be uncomfortable for your organization. Anytime there's change, it is going to be uncomfortable. People are changing their routines. The shorter a window you can make that, I think, the better. The least amount of time you can have that pain. Your organization is going to appreciate that in a lot of different ways. The user interfaces, I talked earlier about how the cloud can provide some flexibility to customize the user experience. Our employees that are in our restaurants these days, it's an iPad generation, iPhone generation. Their expectation for a graphical user interface is pretty high. It's been informed by Apple and Google and Facebook, and having a POS system that doesn't look like it was written on DOS helps. It helps with the technology adoption, and that's something that we've seen some benefits from. The knowing KPIs that are accessible to your managers and to your employees. One of the comments that we've gotten most frequently from our general managers is, I love that I can edit the employees' time clock right on the terminal. And that sounds kind of trivial in a non-cloud environment because, of course, the time clock resides in the back office server and you can go edit it anytime you want. If you move into a cloud environment, you've got to think about where does that labor instance reside. Is it in the cloud? Is it in the terminal? What is the share rate between those two things? If it's just in the cloud, then a manager has to go to the cloud portal in order to change time clock. Well, that means Susie showed up 10 minutes early and I'd like her to start working now. We use schedule enforcement, so that requires a manager override to say, okay, start Susie 10 minutes early. If Susie, let's say Susie shows up late that day, she's 10 minutes late. If I want to edit her time clock, to schedule her differently or schedule her early or late, I'd have to go to the back office, log into the portal, go in there and edit the time clock. If I forget to do that because it's, busy morning, I've got a big order going out that day, I'm stressed and rushed as a manager, I might write myself a note and remember to go back to it later, or I might forget. Either one of those scenarios isn't good. I'm either going to forget to pay Susie what she's owed, or I'm going to eat the labor cost because I didn't go back in and edit it. Having the ability to go right onto the terminal and edit that time clock, because there's an instance of that time clock sitting on the terminal, has been one of those little devils in the detail that was a real pain for our general managers in our old system, but really have taken to in this system. Also, export functionality from the PAR system has been a real help in reducing keystroke errors and administrative task time when it comes to things like payroll and accounting exports. Looking at your data and who needs it and how, in what way, in what format do they need it. That was a good fit for us because we found an export format that easily fed over into our payroll system and cut out about 2 hours of keystroke entry by our bookkeeper every 2 weeks. And more than just the time it took her, if you're typing 150 numbers into a spreadsheet, you're going to mess up 1 or 2 of those. And again, there you're in the position of either overpaid or underpaid somebody. So, and that's not good. So that was a good benefit to us. That's sort of a summary of how the deployment went for us. We've learned a lot. We've been very pleased with the outcome we've gotten so far, and we're very eagerly anticipating the rollout of online ordering and the loyalty. So with that, I'd like to leave as much time as we can for questions and answers, because I'd really like to hear what's on everybody's mind.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Okay, this is the time where we're going to start with some questions. So if anyone listening would like to ask either one of our panelists a question, you can use the chat window on the lower left-hand corner to submit some of your questions. And with that, we have several coming in, so let's get started. What do you guys do if your store loses internet with a cloud POS solution? Darren, do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. So the cloud solution is, we're technically a hybrid hosted solution, so meaning that we have the server rests in the cloud. The hybrid comes in is that it's not necessary to run the restaurant. So internet is not needed to run the day-to-day functions of placing orders inside the restaurants, presenting a check to the guest, cashing out. All the day-to-day functionality works. What you lose with the internet is the ability to accept your credit cards. Your loyalty resides in the cloud if you have online ordering. So at the remedial level, it's degraded gracefully to a working as an in-store function only. What we recommend is having a business continuity solution, a redundant solution. I think Tim and his team are deploying a solution where you have a backup internet, so a dual internet connection, so you are covered in that space. But real quickly is that you can run the restaurant, you just lose some of the other functionality.
Okay. Spencer would like to know, what would you recommend for people with a small IT team with limited resources? And either one of you can weigh in on that, I think.
So I would say that pretty accurately describes Salsaritas. I have one technologist on our staff, and then I have me. So that's our IT footprint. Again, those user interfaces that we've experienced in Brink have helped somebody who's, my technologist is not a graduate of Google University. He has a photography degree, but he's a good project manager, and he's got good technical knowledge, and he comes from a technical support background. But the adoption rate of the user interface and the programming interface that's available on the back end has been very approachable for us. We have worked with systems in the past that the back end is very programming heavy. You need to know computer programming language in order to use it correctly or to use it at its fullest ability. This one is much more of a WYSIWYG setup where you can test things very easily and see what their effect is. One thing I will say about the cloud when it comes to your IT staff or your enterprise manager is, a cloud is a very powerful thing because you can reach out and touch everybody at once. That means you can also reach out and screw up everybody at once. So, you want to have structural safeguards in place within your operation to make sure you don't accidentally send down a change that cuts off everybody's credit cards at once, because the cloud will give you the power to do that. For example of that, one thing that we have is we have a development lab where we test all of our new ideas or new promotions or new coupons or anything. We'll test out in our development lab. Then we'll move it over to our production lab, which is just a fancy word for the computer we keep in the other room in the office here, which is an exact copy of what's in the restaurants. And that way we don't let any of our messing around in the lab stuff bleed over into the production copy of what's in the restaurant. And we always test on ourselves on our corporate restaurants before we push to our franchise restaurants, so that if there is a bug residing there, we see it beforehand. So you can put together some structural safeguards to help a small IT team look big and impressive, which I hope we do some days.
Okay, great. What are the top POS systems you recommend for a small, fast casual restaurant? And when they say small, under five units, but in a heavy traffic location. So
I would say that Brink is a fantastic solution for a one-unit chain on up to 1,000-unit chain. So I would always, if we knew what we know now, if we knew that we were going to be 20, 30 restaurants back when we were 1 or 2 restaurants, we would have probably done things differently in the past. So fast casual POS system, Brink is head and shoulders above those that I've seen out there in this space. And don't let the size of saying that we don't have the 30, 40 units, that it's not the right size for us. It's a good system to grow along with you as your brand. And by choosing a system that's like Brink, the cost structure is a little bit better, that'll help you grow to the larger unit size quicker.
Okay. Tim, this one's for you. How long was your discovery process from making the decision to explore options to signing the service agreement?
Okay, good question. We put out, with the help of an outside consulting firm, we put together an RFP in June of 2015. The RFP process itself ran about 3 months, and we had about 14 companies invited to participate. Of those 14, 11 kind of the RFP is long and lengthy and requires the POS company to respond with a lot of answers, and so that weeds out some people that are just like, hey, this isn't worth the effort. About 11 companies participated fully. We weaned that down to 3 finalists who came, plus the incumbent, who came to our offices and provided presentations, a scripted presentation to this committee. Those were 4 3-hour meetings apiece, and from there we used a rating and ranking system of, on some criteria we determined ahead of time to weed it down to 2 finalists that we could go into more depth on the cost side and the contract side. We didn't want to do that. You don't have time or the bandwidth to do that with everybody. And then at that point, our decision became pretty clear amongst the organization. But that process lasted until, let's say we had the decision made by early October. We had our franchise convention, which ate up the month of October, and then we got into the holidays, which ate up some more time. So we actually signed on with Brink in February after the lawyers got done messing around with the contract. We signed, I think, in February of 2016, and it was about 8 weeks from hello, nice to meet you, officially, meeting my project manager, until we had our first beta test live in a restaurant. Which that part I was, they told me 8 to 12 weeks, and I was very skeptical based on my prior experience. But they were able to deliver, and I was pleased to get to kicking the tires that quickly.
Okay. Back to you again, Tim. What was the hardware cost involved in switching from your original system? Can you give us that?
I can give you the options we had. We thought a lot about that, and because our previous POS system really wasn't that long in the tooth. Some of the hardware that was deployed out there really wasn't that long in the tooth, and so we had a dual option that Brink worked with us on. We could either convert the existing hardware and upgrade the hard drive on it, and they were able to figure out how to stage a Brink system on the existing hardware, and we had about 20% of our franchisees went with that solution. The majority replaced it with new hardware, and giving them that option and flexibility to say, hey, here's you don't have to throw your hardware out the door. I mean, you can reuse it. That was, for our particular situation, that worked out. It was helpful. Most people elected to go with fresh hardware because once you crack open somebody's old hardware, obviously they're not going to warranty it, and it's not fair to expect a new provider to warranty hardware they've never seen before. So some people were wary of the hardware support and wanted to have fresh equipment, and we were able to put together what we felt like were some competitive prices in order to do that. And then I think I'd say maybe another 20% of our franchisees chose to use, maybe it was a little more like 40% chose to use Brink's financing arm in order to finance those purchases to spread out the operating costs.
Back to the no internet questions. Darren, where is the information stored on a day-to-day basis?
So there is a small compact version of SQL that's loaded on each of the terminals, and it resides locally on the terminal. And once the internet is back up, it will report back to the cloud.
And
okay.
that, just to chime in on the backup, Darren mentioned earlier, we do use a backup 4G in all of our restaurants. The device that actually handles the failing over from the primary to the secondary internet is actually the firewall. That's not the Brink system itself isn't saying, oh, I'll go use my cell phone now. It's the firewall is saying, I don't see the primary ISP working. I'm going to go over to my 4G signal and use that. And in our experience, if you've got a good 4G system, the Brink POS system never knows it's offline. I mean, it happens in the blink of an eye that it kicks over to the backup. So that I would personally, having tried it the other way without backup and having to scream at my internet service provider a lot, I would recommend a 4G backup. The prices of those things are getting very, very competitive. And I know Verizon, for example, has a business package. If you've got a business package with them, you pay like $10 a month or $15 a month for a gig of backup that you can pool amongst your restaurants. That's the prices of that have really been falling and made that a very almost a simple insurance policy that, you know, why lose a sale if it's only going to cost you $10 a month.
Okay.
Yeah, Tim, well stated on that. I think having lived it with other POS systems, it's not just a cloud thing. You lose internet. In a legacy POS system, credit cards authorized over internet, so you're kind of stuck to that if they have a spooling effect and losing credit cards. So it's really a safer way to properly configure your restaurant with a well-vetted out firewall that manages that traffic. And to your point, Tim, it's a great insurance policy.
Okay. Are you using EMV? And if so, what are the processor options?
That's for me, I'm assuming?
I think so, yes.
We are going to be EMV capable with our change of merchant processor in probably another 2 months. I, however, am not going to start using EMV until I'm drug in, kicking and screaming. We are in a fast casual restaurant with our average ticket around $11 or $12. Most people are not going to scam a credit card in order to buy a burrito. They're going to head to Best Buy or to Vegas. But I do personally, and this is just personal conjecture here. I'm not an expert in this, but I have an opinion, like everybody. I think that, you know, EMV is going to happen to everybody eventually. You're seeing the adoption rates amongst the big box retailers climbing, and as consumers get used to it and it becomes more of the norm, I think the credit card processors are going to ratchet up the incentives, or not incentives, the punishments if you're not, the disincentives. So we're preparing to have that equipment in place, but I'm not going to turn it on until the economics become such, or my chargeback rates become such that I need to.
Okay.
I'd like to add. Can I add to that also? Sorry.
Sure.
So to echo that, EMV is not a POS functionality. It's a credit card and processor functionality, and we do work closely with processors that EMV is enabled with the devices. Prior history, one of the brands that I'd worked for in the past, we did deploy with Brink an EMV solution. So there is, to answer the question, it does work with our system. I know that there's some of the systems out there that are still waiting for them to go live.
Okay. What is each of your favorite part of the cloud POS, and what's the biggest headache?
I'll go. My favorite was the enterprise management. The ability to push changes instantly to multiple restaurants and not bring down an entire system is a huge bonus for managing the system. And maybe the same thing for the biggest headache is the ability to change things that quickly. It entices marketing to make more changes.
Well said. I think somewhat similarly, my biggest headache with the cloud is that. Well, let me start with you, Van. One of the things I really like about the cloud is that centralization of data outside of the four walls of the restaurant provides a level of security and redundancy that we didn't have when we had a traditional back office POS server that everyone could touch and did. In today's the credit card environment being what it is, data security is a responsibility that the merchants of the world have been given, mostly against their will and against their better judgment, by the credit card companies. And so it's now incumbent on us to protect ourselves, and the cloud helps do a lot of that in a way that leaving a PC that is operating as your back office server. Every kid that's coming out of high school today has a minor in computer hacking, and so I like that I've got some inherent security there. Biggest headache, like Darren said, cloud can be very powerful, so you can really screw up a lot of stuff quickly if you're not careful. So it's incumbent on you to put your own safeguards in place to prevent yourself from hurting yourself.
Okay. Tim, do you guys have a loyalty option and online ordering yet, or are you working on that?
Okay, so we have a legacy loyalty product that we still have and are maintaining through the conversion with Brink. So Brink worked out an integration with them. We're continuing to use them as it is while we build the new loyalty platform that we then can replace one with the other, with the goal of it appearing to the guest that we simply enhance the features of the loyalty program as opposed to, hey, last week we had loyalty, this week we have something different. So that's where the track we're on with loyalty. With online ordering, we don't have that currently. That was one of the major drivers in our selection of Brink, was that it had a inherent online ordering capability as opposed to an integrated one. With an integrated one, I've got two databases to maintain. If I make a change on my main menu, I got to go into the online ordering database and change the price there. Keeping those two synced can be, a struggle and a responsibility. This one, if I make a change in my enterprise, it is changed for both online ordering and for in-restaurant because they're the same item. The fact that online ordering comes in is just a way that the order shows up.
Okay. So online ordering is coming then soon?
Yeah, I'm actually, we've got about 3/4 of the menu built out, and I should be beta testing it within the next month. I'll be beta testing it. To me, the bigger concern with online ordering, I know the technology's there to make the orders show up. What happens when you're in the middle of a busy lunch and the printer spooler starts spitting out 6 orders? What are the operational implications for that technology is the bigger question to me right now than, hey, can I make an order show up?
Sure. Darren, did you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think that the deployment schedule that they've chosen is wise. Sometimes restaurant operations will want to deploy everything out of the toolbox at the first swipe, and I think it's a wise decision to deploy it in the fashion that they're doing at Salsaritas, because, again, it's minimal change with the way that you're doing some of the POS. Well, not minimal, but it's reduced by going with a cloud system, but it's still changed nonetheless, and you want them all to succeed and stand on their own, and you'd hate to get one of those things thrown out because it was lumped in with an entire deployment. So probably I wish others would follow Tim's lead.
Right.
I think some of that comes from being a franchisor. Our franchisees are independent business owners. They're very entrepreneurial people who are, big thinkers and out-of-the-box thinkers, and a franchisor wants them to stay nice and inside this nice, tight little box. So their appetite for technology change has to be met, which is I can't just pour technology on people. I've tried.
Right.
It just hasn't worked.
Sure. All right, we have time for one more question. So what is the one thing you wish you had known before starting the evaluation, selection, and implementation of a new POS solution?
Tim, you want to go first? Or?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think, not all clouds are the same. I think that's what I wish I had known. I think in our first stab at this, we were enamored with the idea of cloud technology, and everything is going to be beautiful in the cloud. And inside a cloud, things are foggy. So not all clouds are created the same, and that's where that discussion about knowing where your data is and how you need it and when you need it and how quickly you need it. I don't think anybody out there would advise having a 100% cloud network. What we're really talking about with all these solutions, be it Brink or many of the other providers out there, is a hybrid cloud solution where you have certain instances of critical functions residing on the terminal in the restaurant with cloud backup, and then other aspects residing fully in the cloud for items that you need on a daily basis as opposed to an instantaneous basis. So figuring out where that data resides and where you need it to reside was an oversight of ours early on, and one that we've come to appreciate a lot more now.
Okay.
And I think that being back on that side and making a selection, I think I would open it up to as many stakeholders, very similar to what they did at Salsaritas, and not expect the status quo. I've found now that I'm on this side of the table, I see a lot of customers wanting to make sure that the POS system does exactly what their old POS system did, and not realizing that the old POS system had limitations is why it was created that way and why you need to do that. So really go in with an open mind and not expect the same limitations that happened the last time you chose a POS system are necessarily the same limitations now. And I think that happens by bringing more people to the table and just asking questions, why is it done that way? And you throw out the answers was, well, that's the way we've always done it, and that's the way our system made us do it. So I think the more people that are exposed to the situation, and go with the mantra that there is no dumb questions. Let's ask it and let's improve it, because really the POS system can be help it be part of a true revenue generator to speed up and enhance the guest experience instead of just being this clunky register that sits in front of you and slows you down. You can do so much wonderful things with pushing people through a line by just properly building out a database to anticipate the needs of the new world.
Right. Okay, well, we are out of time, so I just wanted to thank you, Darren and Tim, for being so candid and for all the great advice. And I also wanted to thank our participants for some great questions for that Q&A that we just had. And lastly, I want to tell everyone to watch your inbox for an email with a link to the on-demand version of this webinar so you can watch it whenever you would like to. And it'll also have contact info just in case you have some other questions. And with that, I'm going to let you all get back to your days. Thank you and have a great day.
This does conclude today's conference. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.